like here's the thing. I really like a lot of liberal stuff. Okay, I definitely to the point that I call myself.
Yeah.
Yes. However,
All right.
um,
Detransitioning. No, I'm not detransitioning. Why?
okay, was that? I guess that was just memes, eh? Is that in order to understand his current video, you have to have watched all his previous videos because they build on each other,
That
and
is
so
retarded. No, hold on, hold on. No, you do not. All right.
I mean,
I don't know
mine are
where
kind of that
this
way too, to
conception
be
comes
honest.
from. What?
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't know
No,
if
you
you've
do
watched any
not.
of my videos. Sure. Hear me out. Hear me out. So in my videos, do you know that I like link back to previous topics? I say I talked about this in this previous video,
Yeah,
and I have like a
yeah, but
link
it's
that
not
appears. Yeah.
okay. Holy shit! I'm sorry. Are your videos Invincible season 3? Because like it's not like I need to watch like like the first 2 seasons in order to get like season three's fucking episodes, right? Like I can watch one of your videos or one of Sargon's video, and it's like a Star Trek episode, right? It's an individual thing all by itself, unless it's like part 1 and part 2. You know what I mean?
Okay. So if that's the case, then what was Sargon's point about ideology?
His point about ideology is that the rational side of the world is structured in rules and order, and even though he understands where it comes from, it does not. There's something about it that is soulless, that is lifeless. It doesn't create good men, and these people are just kind of pointless. They're all part of bureaucracy, and he misses when there's like these old people running around killing people and raping people. Yeah, what's up?
Okay. I mean, that's part of it. That's like a quarter of it. Um, when he says that Trump does not operate with an ideology, what does he mean?
He means that he represents the old world, right? He's because Trump is dumb, okay? That's the point, okay? Because Trump is so retarded that he doesn't operate
Trump
with the
is dumb. Yes.
ideology. Like for example, if Trump wants, okay, he can literally I can't even predict what he's about to do. Like for example, Trump could literally pardon everybody on death row tomorrow, okay? And I would expect it and not expect it at the same time. That's what I mean by he's not governed by a political ideology. Because from my point of view, okay, let me just explain. From my point of view, he has no ideology because all of his ideology is based on ego, all right, on ego. He does everything he does to maximize his own ego. However, from Sargon's perspective, his ideology is not just based on ego, it's based on this philosophy of the old world or something. You know what I mean?
Kind of. So the idea is that okay. Let's see if I can parse this properly. When you first had liberalism come about, you had like John Locke and Rousseau and Adam Smith. You had all these European guys sitting down and like writing out what were liberal values, and they were trying to figure this out, right?
Yes,
And they were
yes, and
yeah.
I'm sure the point is that these guys were great people because in turmoil they had to come up with a revolutionary idea in order to create peace and stability. So heroes had to be born out of weak time in order to do that. But now that the bureaucracy has been formed, now we don't need these kinds of people anymore. So we don't see any heroes
What,
forming. That's the point, right?
that's not what I'm. That's not. No, that's not where I'm going with this
Okay,
at
all
all.
right,
No,
yeah,
no,
go ahead,
no.
yeah.
Okay. So
But
what ideology is basically the abstracted, intellectualized version of cultural practices, right? So when John Locke was writing down what he thought liberalism was, he was basically writing down. He was intellectualizing good parts of like English culture. And same with Adam Smith. He was writing down what he saw. I mean, one of the big anecdotes that Adam Smith uses in Wealth of Nations is he sees people smuggling goods into the UK, even though in that point in time you would face the death penalty if you were a smuggler. And Adam Smith asked, "Well, why the fuck are these people doing this?" And well, the reason was because there was a lot of money to be made. Well, why is there money to be made? Well, because the French actually make good stuff, and they make different good stuff than the English do. So he was basically like the idea of when you write an ideology, generally what you're doing is you're not creating political theory, even though leftists say that all the time. You're actually observing political reality, and you're trying to turn it into a doctrine. And that's what the creation of ideology is. So, for example, like Marx was watching the Paris Commune when he came up with communism. He didn't just pull this out of his ass, right? So, when you write political theory, you are observing political reality and trying to abstract some sort of scientific rule set. that you
Wait,
can then
this wait,
use to
hold on.
apply
I
to
gotta stop
other.
you. Wait, I have to stop you. I have to stop
Yeah.
you. This feels
Okay.
kind of like a semantic issue because you're kind of just saying like, oh, people come up with new philosophies because they observe situations and events and people around them. But the thing is that like it's like potato, right? Like regardless, I can say that, oh, these guys create political theory. They create like a potential for new political reality, right? But the thing is that like we are both correct in this case, and you're just describing something that I already believe, right?
Okay, that's completely fine. That's completely fine. So here's the next step of it, right? The
Okay.
issue ultimately with ideology is that because it is extracting the values of a specific time and place, the more that you move away from that time and place, the less functional the ideology gets. And that is Sargon's big critique of ideology, is that like John Locke writes down what liberalism is, and he's writing in the 1600s in the UK. And if you take that ideology, you take it away from the 1600s, you take it away from the UK, and let's say you put it in like 2025 fucking Uganda or something, are those people going to be able to live by John Locke's liberalism? The answer is probably no, because there's too many differences between 1600s UK and 2025
Okay,
Uganda.
okay, wait, hold on. If that is what Sargon believes, then isn't he being hypocritical? Because what he wants is like these old kings to come back. He's a monarchist, right? So he wants these old kings to come back. But isn't that like also just something ancient that you want to apply to the current period that may not necessarily apply?
Not necessarily, because Sargon doesn't want like an American king. He's happy with the British king. He doesn't want the Americans to do something. He doesn't want
But
the
isn't
Americans to
that
be like the
older?
British.
But isn't that even older than whatever this liberal democracy shit is? Because that thing came before liberal democracy.
What do you mean? I mean, the
What do you
king's
mean?
still around.
It's very no.
He's still
No,
here.
okay, hold on. But what he believes isn't just this concept of a king, this representation of the government kind of king person. Okay, not the head of. He has no real power. Okay, the king has no real power anymore. Okay, we're talking
That's not
about
true, actually.
and
But
no, hold on. We're talking about like King Clovis. We're talking about Charlemagne. We're talking about these old you I mean you can say that he still has power, but I can argue that he still has less power than these old king ruler dictator types, right? Like
um,
Pope Leo the Third had more power than all the kings combined, but the current pope obviously doesn't
so
have the same power as Pope Leo the Third, right?
so when it comes to, for example, the Falklands War, this was relatively recent, 1982, long past the point that the UK became a liberal democracy. When the UK went to war with Argentina over the Falklands, there was no vote in Parliament. It was simply the prerogative of the king to declare war, and he did. That power is still in effect.
Okay, that's great, but that doesn't defeat my point, right? Because my point is that the past kings is still has more power than whatever the current kings are, right?
Maybe so, but I didn't finish my point here yet. I'm still trying to
Okay.
describe what Sargon
Okay,
what Sargon
but I'm
says.
just
Okay.
yeah, but I'm just saying your foundational point is already flawed. So whatever reason you're about to give
So
is also
okay,
based on flawed
I don't think this
right?
is related, but here let's just keep
Okay.
going. Okay,
Okay.
so basically, because ideology itself is the values of a specific time and place, like intellectualized and put on paper and then reapplied in a different time and place, the reapplication ends up being flawed in some ways, which is why liberal democracy doesn't work with some populations. Some countries are just not suited for it, whether it's due to cultural differences or geographic differences or whatever, right? So
That's fine.
when Sar- when Sargon says Trump does not operate with an ideology, what he's basically saying, as far as I understand it, is that Trump does not look at politics in this way, where you have this value set that has been kind of a priori established that you're then going to try and pursue. Trump doesn't do that. He does not have a value set that has been turned into a theory that he pursues in the same way that a more bureaucratic person is. Trump basically just follows his gut, and there's no rhyme or reason to it.
Okay, hold on. You that this feels a lot. Do you know what this sounds like? It just you can put a child with Down syndrome in the position of president, and you can make the same argument. Can you not?
Possibly, yeah.
Okay.
Listen.
Ooh, hold
Okay,
on. But doesn't it
food
seem kind
shops.
of
Just
disingenuous?
wait.
Hold on, hold on,
Just
hold on.
wait.
Hold on. Ah, okay. No, go ahead. No, fine. Go ahead. Go ahead first. Okay. But
Because
okay.
you know that I don't like Trump already. So this is not me coming out as pro-Trump.
No,
I'm
I
trying to
know that.
describe this position. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So as I was saying, okay, because when you say that a person does not have ideology, you can ideally talk about two kinds of people, okay? You're either talking about like the God King Emperor who is just. He is otherworldly. He is cosmic horror incarnate, okay? He's like the Emperor from 40K, right? He's somebody who you just cannot reach. You cannot comprehend with your mind, right? He is playing 50D chess. Or you're talking about a Down syndrome inbred retard with 5 different chins, okay? Like which one are you talking about here? Obviously, we both believe that Trump is a fucking retard. Or but the problem is that Sargon believes that Trump is the God Emperor of God Emperors, right? Isn't that the point?
No, I don't think so. No, I don't think that's the point.
Because
Well, here,
both don't have
well,
political ideologies. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean, but also lots of just normal people don't have political ideologies either. In fact,
Oh my
I would
god.
put myself in that camp
He's
as
the
well. I don't view myself
president!
as ideological.
Oh my god, Dev! He's the president of the United States! Yes, he's supposed to have a political ideology. He's the president!
Okay,
Of course most
so
people
hold
don't have
on.
political. I
Just
don't
wait. So,
care! Yeah, go ahead.
hear me out. Hear me out. Hear me out. Okay, so you know how whenever you talk to like some dumb fuck communist and you ask
Yeah,
them
sure.
about like various attempts of communism and they'll always say, well, real communism has never been tried. I'm sure you've heard that. I've heard that. Do you know what's actually
Okay.
being said there when they say that?
Yeah, what are they saying?
Well, they're saying basically that they have. Well, no, come on, hear me out here, okay? They have an
Okay.
ideology. The ideology says that X, Y, Z should happen. However, in reality, A, B, C happens instead of X, Y, Z. And because they are ideological thinkers, they adhere to the theory and ignore the reality. That's the danger of thinking too ideologically, is that you don't see the real world in front of you. And
Okay,
so, when you
that's
have
fantastic, but
when you
go
have
ahead.
somebody who does not think on ideological lines, that means that they can actually observe the practical reality and see what's happening, right? So if you had like an ideological socialist in the White House, they would not be able to understand why their own theories are failing when they put them into practice.
Oh my god,
That's why
Dev.
you shouldn't have an ideology.
Dev, I know you're not this dumb. Okay, hold on.
Okay,
Hold on,
well,
Dev.
what am I
Wait,
missing then?
hold on.
Go
Let
ahead,
me
go ahead.
explain. Let me refute. Let me refute. Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Great. That happens with cringe Twitter lefties, okay? They try to argue that the bedtime is oppression, okay? But we're
Hmm.
talking about liberal democracy. We all know that liberal democracies are just better. They're just better because liberal democracy is based more on the reality of how people, work together, how people want to help each other, how people want to create alliances with each other, right? We're not talking about this commie shit, right? You're extracting something that a lot of these cringe ass commies would do, and you're applying them to liberal democracy. I don't even think that Sargon even believes in that either. I think Sargon is also disingenuous. I think he's a retard or he's delusional. All right, do you know what I mean? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I know what you're saying, but I don't agree with you. Okay. So
Oh
firstly,
my,
what I've just said,
how?
hear me
Okay,
out.
yeah,
Hear
go
me out.
ahead.
So,
Yeah.
what I'm saying applies to all ideology, not just the communists. It applies to the fascists. It applies to the monarchists. It applies to the neo-reactionaries. It does apply to the liberals. Anyone who has basically a set of values and rules that are theoretical and rigid, and that they continue to work towards even after they have failed. That is ideological thinking. And this is why, like, here's the thing. I really like a lot of liberal stuff, okay? I definitely, to the point that I call myself a
Yeah?
liberal. Yes.
Uh-huh.
However, when certain liberal things fail in certain times and places because of the particularities of those situations, I am not ideologically captured by liberalism to the point that I'll say, oh, just keep marching that direction. Just keep doing that. No. Sometimes things don't work, right? Like you cannot impose
Oh my
a
god.
liberal pluralistic democracy in Saudi Arabia. You will have a fucking revolution instantly because the people
And
there don't
Caesar.
think that way.
Yes, 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 Dev. And Caesar was stabbed by Brutus. Okay. What I'm saying is, okay, because he was like he took emergency powers, whatever, right? The point is, what I'm saying is, you essentially have a retard in office who is not bound by political ideology because he is a retard. He's not bound by political ideology because he's smart, because he wants what's best, because power enables him to do better things, right? He's not, God, what's the one Roman emperor's name? God, there's like two Roman emperors that were two different people, and they were like, one was an asshole and one was not an asshole, all right? The thing is that you have somebody who doesn't have a political ideology because he's dumb. All right. So when he does things according to his ego, you create worse outcomes. And even though, all right, so even though, yes, sure, we have all these rules, we have these rules for a reason. There also tends to be a mixture of rules. There also tends to be different rules working at different times. These are things that are. Wait, hold on, Sleepy. Can you come in later, please? Please. You can come in afterwards, okay? Thank you, Sleepy. Okay,
I think
all
that
right.
person's a crush on me actually.
Okay, yeah, no, Sleepy has a crush on everybody. It's fine. Okay, so the point is, all right. The point is, okay, you just want your trap waifu to, okay, yeah, whatever. Just the point is that
Based.
okay, because I know Sleepy
Go
is
ahead.
also is like a fucking neo monarchist. Okay, but the point is,
Wait,
all right.
really? That's actually
Yes. Okay.
hilarious. I didn't
Yes.
know.
No, it's not okay. Okay, we need to dissuade them from this path. All right. So the point
Hmm.
is, fucking gross. Why? Okay, you know what? Never mind. I'm gonna ignore chat. Okay. Wait, I'm too quiet. Am I too quiet now? Hello? Hi? Ah!
Hi. Okay.
Okay.
So listen. I know what you're
The point.
saying.
Okay,
I understand.
you're. No. You don't.
Well,
You don't. Okay. The point
I do. I heard. Okay.
is that you are saying when there is a political ideology that is being adhered to in a government, there are rules, there are bureaucracy. Eventually, bureaucracies will form in which people have to work within the bureaucracy in order to produce certain outcomes, right? But the fact that bureaucracies are going to be there in the first place, haha, he doesn't have a crush on you. But the point is, okay, but the point is that yes, but that's the nature of all ideologies, unless you are some kind of primitivist, right? Unless you're some kind of neo-primitivist, unless you're some kind of chaos loving anarchist or something, right? That's not even like a real whatever, man. It's the point is that you can't just say we need more chaos good in order to create innovation. This is
I don't
what he's
think that's what he
essentially
said in this
arguing for here,
video.
right?
I don't think so. I do not think so.
No,
No.
that's literally what he's saying.
No, I don't. I don't think that's what he's saying.
Literally what
So,
he's saying.
so here's the thing, right? So here's how I view it. Okay. So one, um, there's a spectrum between being too ideological and not ideological enough, right? So if you are too ideological, then you're devoted to your theory too much, and you end up marching off cliffs because you can't see the practical reality. That's one danger. All right. The other
Okay.
danger is when you're not ideological enough, because ideologies are also moral systems. And when you have no ideology, it means that you have no morals guiding you. There's no principles underpinning what you do.
Wait,
You're
I know
simply
what you're
doing
saying. Okay,
whatever
we're
benefits
looping.
you.
Hold on. We're looping. The point.
I didn't even
Why
finish what I
we
was going to say.
disagree? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, but you're repeating the same point like the last five times. Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
No, basically, there is a midpoint where you need some sort of principles, but you can't just blindly follow them off a cliff. And my view of Trump, and it's a correct view, I think. Like people say, Trump is a fascist. No, I don't think he's a fascist. I think Trump is just non-ideological to the point of lacking any sort of principle or moral standard. He simply does what is good for Trump.
Okay. Okay. Can I give a full response? If that's
Okay,
okay.
go ahead.
First of all right, you automatically make that argument based on the presumption that people will not change the situation they are in order to better suit their needs. For example, you have a political ideology that no longer works according to the time. You are going off the presumption there that maybe the change is not fast enough in order to suit the time, which is entirely not true. Sure, it might be slower, like democracy. However, democracy will still get us eventually to something the people want. If they want a fascist dictator, then sure, they are gonna get one. But the thing is that you're automatically presuming that there is no political innovation here at play. The key here is, and the key of our disagreement is political innovation. We both think whether or not political innovation is going to work, whether or not it's under Trump or not, right? However, the problem here is that Trump is for himself, but he's not for himself in the sense that he is for the people. He does not adhere to a political ideology that is helping the people, right? He's not adhering even to himself in a way that helps the people, right? Like, and also, not only that, how do you follow these kinds of principles off of a cliff? Like, for example, if you adhere to we have debate and we have free speech all the time to the point where we are debating these kinds of ideas, right? So I don't see how we are blindly following them off a cliff. And not only that, I disagree with you on the fact that Trump is not a fascist. He is absolutely a fascist. If you also agree that he is dumb and he goes off of his own ego and he makes orders and directions based off of his own ego and he tries to consolidate power as much as he could, then he is absolutely, by all definitions, a fascist, right?
No.
Okay. Okay. All right.
I mean, hold on. I did that whole 3 forms of fascism video to show that it's not just about being a dictator. No, there's actually an ideology there. Yes, Foodshops, and you watched it, so you know this. You know this. Trump is not a fascist. However, just wait. So here's the thing. Yeah,
No, explain why.
Okay, I'll ask you this. Okay, do you think Mencius Moldbug is a fascist?
Yes.
No, he's clearly not.
Yes.
He is.
Did we read the same book or did we not? We read the same book.
Yes, we did. Yes, we fucking did. Now listen. All right.
Wait,
listen.
hold on.
Fascism.
Hold on.
No.
We need a break. Can we talk about cats? Can we talk about cats?
No. Just let me say this.
Yes,
okay?
Go.
Fascism is not simply when it's right-wing authoritarian bad guy, okay? It is actually an ideology. And this, in the same way that socialism is not simply when the government does stuff. It's actually an ideology with tenets, all right? There are many bad philosophers out there. There are many bad dictators out there. There are many bad political systems out there. It's not fascism because it's right-wing and you don't like it. Monarchists aren't fascists.
Oh my gosh. Wait, hold on. Did I ever say that right wing that I equivalate all right wing with fascism? Did I ever say that?
No, but that's not what I'm saying either.
Okay, so why are you saying as if like I am saying that? I'm not, right?
Okay. Because you said Mencius Moldbug is a fascist and he's clearly not. Despite being right wing and despite being very bad.
No, because I didn't give a reasoning yet, so you don't know what I'm about to argue, right? Because I haven't given
go ahead.
a reason.
Tell me why.
Okay.
Tell me why.
The reason why I think Mencius Moldbug is a fascist is because he argues for a CEO king who is in charge of the state, who is authoritarian, and you try to reduce as much free speech as possible. And essentially, he just wants a neo-monarchy. He wants a modernized version of a kingdom, right? Yes, by all means, that is fascism.
No.
Fascism doesn't mean you hate Jews. What the fuck?
No, okay, listen. I still don't agree with it, but it's not. Okay, here you said. Here are the 4 points that I wrote down. You said CEO king, authoritarian, no free speech, modern kingdom. If that's your understanding of fascism, you don't know what fascism is.
Okay, you try to reduce as much. You try to reduce as much of like the freedom of expression, freedom of speech. You try to be more isolationist. You're more isolationist being unless you're absolutely pushed to that point, right? You are somebody who tries to consolidate power within as small of a purview as possible, typically within one person, aka a king, right? These are all hallmarks of fascism. Fascism isn't just like three principles. Fascism isn't just like satisfying all 10 requirements or something, right? Fascism is satisfying enough to fill a vibe. Does that make sense? And even though lots of people have a problem with the word vibe, ultimately that is kind of the point here, right? Like, for example, we can say that the USSR, at least back then, with this kind of control over free speech, over like secret police and all of that stuff, that is kind of red fascism, right? So these are still fascist things, even though they're not necessarily pertaining to Hitler or pertaining to Nazis or pertaining to the hatred of Jews, right? Like otherwise we're missing the point. Otherwise we just can't identify almost anything as fascism.
None of these things are what I've said either, though. Okay, so you've pointed out no free speech and expression, isolationist, consolidating power
Wait,
within a small purview.
how about you define fascism? Okay, fine, you define fascism then. Go.
Well, it's going to be one of the three periods of fascism from the three forms of fascism.
I forgot about your video.
You
Okay,
forgot. You forgot.
Yeah, I forgot. Yes. Yeah, hold on. Yeah, I was sleeping like half of the time. So go.
You should probably wake up when you watch my videos. God damn it. Okay.
All right.
So the classical fascism, which was Mussolini's fascism, he was very specific about it. His whole view was that you have to structure the economy in such a way. You're gonna pull up the video and watch it again.
No, I'm
His
not.
whole view was that you have to structure the economy in such a way that you basically run it in a corporatist system. And the corporatist idea was this economic view that you have basically it's like basically a modern guild system. Each sector of the economy kind of had its own body that regulated it from the top down, and the state would ensure that labor and business interests were aligned in the direction both to help the state. All right. So like that was kind of the big part of what Mussolini was trying to do, is he wanted to basically align all of the various class interests in one direction, which would be towards the state, without actually abolishing any of the classes, because the classical fascists did not believe that you could abolish the classes the way that the Marxists thought you could. However, they also disagreed with the liberal idea that the classes should be basically in conflict and then pushing and pulling against each other and then coming to some sort of settled resolution, like unions and business. Mussolini said, no. They all have to be aligned towards the state's directives. Okay, so that was basically where classical fascism was going. It was very economic. Well, this is only one of the three forms.
Okay, but I already disagree. But go ahead.
But it's okay. You can disagree with that, but you're factually wrong. Like you can pull up Mussolini's writing, you can read it, you can pull like any writing of any of these guys.
That's great. I'm still going to disagree.
All the classical fascists. This is what they wanted. This is what they tried to do.
Because we have a completely different framework for words as a whole. So go ahead.
Then you have the second era of fascism. It was much more expansionistic in that it didn't isolate itself. It wanted to expand outward, right? And this was like the state worship, sometimes the race worship or the ethnic group worship. It was basically like extreme in-group preference when it comes to some sort of ethnicity. The second form of fascism is what people usually, colloquially talk about when they say you're a Nazi. Like that's kind of what they're talking about there is, you have the idea that you have one people that should be underneath one government and it should basically be the thing that the government privileges the most. So like if you have a great example, I think Russia is the second form of fascism right now, because what they're saying is there's ethnic Russians in certain parts of Eastern Europe and they should be under the jurisdiction of the Russian government. And so we have a moral obligation to conquer those lands and bring them into the fold. That is like a second wave fascist view. The third era of fascism is basically anarchist fascism, where they don't want any states at all. They just want tribes. They don't want any sort of centralized sort of authority. They want to basically destroy all states and then live in this sort of tribal, anarchist, state of constant warfare. And
Okay,
those
are
are
you finished?
the three eras. Yes.
Okay. All right, allow me. Okay, you took around 8 minutes. Okay, I'll take 8 minutes
Okay,
from
go
you.
ahead.
Okay,
Go
I'm
ahead. Go
kidding.
ahead.
Okay, all right, but I'll still rebuke it. So, okay, according to me, all right, the way I define words is that words have to have a common definition or a common idea when people say them, all right? So, for example, even though people speak of the term ethnic cleansing or genocide, my inner scholar, all right, I'm not a scholar, but my inner scholar screams in pain because I always go, hold on 1 second, all right? I am thinking of a very technical term that applies in a very academic kind of way. But the problem is that when most people talk about genocide or ethnic cleansing, they are thinking of a very common meaning. When you communicate to the common layman, you are going to be using common meanings that you think that they will be able to understand. But technically, maybe you do not hold to yourself. This is the same with fascism. For example, you may think to you that your framing of the word fascism is this political philosophy that is in anarchy, fascism, second wave fascism, all of this stuff, right? But this is not how most people are going to be using the word fascist. And this is not even the most useful way to use the word fascist. Because now, instead of like just saying, okay, this person is being a fascist, now you're saying, okay, we have to compare this person to the three different definitions. We have to make sure whether or not they are filling in the different kinds of attributes that they are ticking off in order to fill the meaning of the word fascism. No one uses this. Not the Holocaust Museum, not Merriam-Webster, not any other people use this. It kind of feels like to me that the meaning of the word that you are using is something an academic would use maybe in their specific layman. But even then, I have not heard of any kind of academic using your specific definitions all that much. Like, for example, when we regard fascism in the sense of like Nazi Germany, people automatically think of autocratic regime, one dictator, a hatred pointed towards a specific ideology or group of people in order to induce actions that are beneficial to the dictator. And then you also have like a bunch of other common attributes that people can readily identify. But the problem is that when you label it under your specific technical definitions, now what you're doing is that you're no longer using it as a common definition. Does that make sense? So our framing of these words are not even the same.
Yeah. This is Ludwig Wittgenstein. The definition of a word is how it is used. I get it. Okay. So if that's the case, if that's how you want to go, then socialism is literally just when the government does stuff. Then
Socialism is when the government. No, I
that's
disagree with
how it's
this.
used. It's commonly
No,
used that way though.
no. The
Socialism is
point.
taxes. The socialism is
No,
taxes now because
no.
that's how people
I
use
can I
the
can I can
term.
I can I can I add an extra point to myself? So
Okay, go
yes,
ahead.
even though people should be using the common definitions, it should still be in a way where it should be able to differentiate from one another. For example, I do agree with you when people call each other Nazi way too much because it dilutes the definition of Nazi, right? But at the same time, I would rather that the definition Nazi actually caveats to a specific set of attributes that is not too complicated, right?
Um, okay.
I'm saying
At
there's
the
a
same
middle
time,
gray
though,
zone. That's what I'm saying. There's a middle
no,
gray
of
zone
course
to
there is. Of
this.
course there is.
Yeah.
Because so if you go too far, if you lean too far into the definition of the word as how it is used, then anything can quite literally mean anything as long as it's popular enough, right? So now
Yeah, but
everything
we
is
want to hit a
genocide,
yes,
everything
yes,
is
okay.
fascism,
Yes,
everything is
yes, yes.
socialism. I understand the
Yes,
point. Yes.
yes. Yes, but we don't want to be too specific, right? Because
Hmm.
then it becomes private language, right?
No, I understand that too. I understand that too. So
Yeah.
there's two
Okay.
extremes here.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
So
Thank you.
when
Yes.
when you say fascism, do you just mean a dictator then? Because you said that the Soviets were fascists. They're red fascists, right? And you think monarchists are fascists. Okay. So do you just mean a dictator when you say fascist?
Yes, I think so. But unless I mean if you bring up like a specific example throughout history where like there's a dictator but it's not like a fascist dictatorship, then I'll change my definition accordingly.
But here's the thing, though. Like, definitionally, how you are using the word is you're just referring to an authoritarian leader.
Yeah, kind of
So,
like that. Yes, because
so,
no,
so all
but
authoritarian leaders are fascists then.
wait. Can I explain? Can I explain my
Okay,
reasoning?
go ahead. Go ahead.
The thing is that when you have an authoritarian dictator, they will naturally fit attributes to fascism. Naturally, without trying. Does that make sense?
Okay. Okay. Yeah, but now you're begging the question, though. No, it's not. It's not begging the question. You're
It's
assuming.
not begging the question. It's not. It's really not.
No, it's not begging. It's not begging the question. It is assuming that you're already correct. You're just assuming the end point because when you say that if you look at dictators, they have these fascist
that's
points.
not what I'm
But
saying.
you've already defined fascism as just being a dictator, though.
No, wrong. Fascism is a set of
Okay.
attributes, again, that is one, isolationist, right? But it doesn't have to be that way. Two, it could be a king, a person who consolidates power, but it doesn't have to be that way. Three, it could have a group of people that they hate, but it doesn't have to be that way. Like, it's multiple points where they tend to have it on an 80% or 60% basis or whatever, right? But it doesn't have to be that way. The thing is that when you're a dictator in charge of a regime, you typically fit into these anyway because it helps you as a dictator, right? It helps you secure your power as a dictator.
Okay, hold on. Let me write down those points once again. What were they again? Give me them.
Okay, so again, if you're a fascist, a fascist regime typically falls into these things. Okay, hold on. I'll write it down too, okay? So it's okay.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. Number one, isolationist, but not always, parentheses, like in exceptional cases like conquering other territory, okay?
Okay.
Number two, limiting freedom of expression, but not always, all right? A group of people to hate, ideology or otherwise, but not always, right? Number four, let me think. Right. Consolidating power within one person, but not always. Okay? Does that make sense? And
Okay.
a
So
dictator
you have to have
would
like
naturally
yep.
fit into a good amount of these. All right?
Okay, so you need to have like what, at least 3 of these 4?
No, not necessarily 3 of this 4, right? Like each of these 4 points, let's just say that each of these 4 points are on a scale from 1 to 10, all right? A dictator just simply has to fit like, I don't know, like 30 or 32 or something, right? The point is that we don't, typically people don't think in these autistic ways. But the reason why we're thinking in this autistic numerical system is because we're trying to define something more specific, right? But disregard that. The point is that typically if they match these symptoms well enough, then yeah, it is like vice versa, right? Does that make sense?
So I know what you're saying.
Okay. How does a
but,
doctor
but,
diagnose
but
cancer?
okay,
How does a doctor
listen.
diagnose
I
cancer?
just hear me out, okay?
Okay. Yeah,
I know
go
what
ahead.
you're saying. The problem, and I've seen this point of view before. The problem with it is that it's so broad that you can define almost every leader of every country as a fascist this way.
Which one? Which point?
What?
Which point is too broad?
No.
These points?
No. Yeah, the 4 points that we've written down here.
Okay.
So here, you know what?
What do you mean when I'm saying these 4 points? What do you can you say back to me? Can you say back to me what I mean by these 4 points?
Okay, so isolationist, but not always. That means that they like to close off borders. They probably like to have some sort of autarkic society and economy. However, they are willing to expand and conquer their neighbors sometimes, but they're mainly isolationist. Limiting freedom of expression. They like to stomp on people's individual liberties. They like to censor speech they don't like. They like to stomp on the press. They stomp on religion if it doesn't suit them. group of people to hate. There's some sort of out group that is scapegoated to be basically the problems of the society, and any sort of like social ills are placed on this out group, whether accurately or not. And then consolidating power within one person, you have various checks and balances within a liberal government, and they tend to bulldoze these or pull them apart legally in order to to remove roadblocks that are in the way of them using their power to exercise their will.
Okay.
Is that about correct?
Okay. I think you get what they mean, but when it comes to authoritarian, because we're not stupid, right? For example, any kind of liberal democracy would technically be isolationist sometimes, right? Any kind of liberal democracy would limit freedom of expression sometimes, right? And so it also sometimes has a group of people to hate. It also, okay, consolidating power within one person, maybe a little bit less of that. But the point is that a dictatorship will always naturally lean towards these points, but a liberal democracy doesn't have to. Does that make sense?
It does. So here's the thing.
Okay.
But by these 4 points, though, Trudeau here in Canada is a fascist.
How? What?
Do you want to go through it? Do you want to go through it?
Okay.
Okay. So consolidating power within one person. You remember the trucker protest, right?
Uh-huh, yeah.
Yep. So Trudeau used the emergency powers to stop the trucker protest. Canada's emergency powers have only been used 3 other times in its history: 1 during World War I, 2 during World War II, and 3 back in the 1970s when we had like
Okay.
Quebec separatist terrorists who were like bombing things and kidnapping politicians in
I'm
the
gonna
street. All
stop
right.
you. I'm gonna stop you.
No.
I'm gonna
Hold on.
stop you.
3 very
No, wait, you can't just
serious
steamroll me.
examples.
You can't just steamroll me. I
And
have a counter to this.
Trudeau used it for this fucking
Oh
nonsense,
God.
this nonsense protest, okay?
Okay.
And but more importantly, after the trucker protest was over, some of the law was changed so that those emergency powers just became a part of what the prime minister can do normally. So the emergency power was not even given back after the emergency was over in their totality.
Okay.
So
Okay. I would argue.
power was consolidated in one person.
Hold on.
And
Hold on.
that's done.
Okay, hold on. I want to counter your first point because your first point is invalid. All right.
Okay.
So, yes, he has done that. I would say that is a fascistic action. All right. But I would not say that overall shows that it is fascistic overall. Do you know why I say that? I say that because he did it as one action, but if he did it multiple times to the point where you're leaning more and more towards consolidating towards one person, then yes, I would say you're leaning more and more towards fascism. But yes, this one action is fascistic. Fine, right? But when I say
Okay, well, there's another time too. There's another time.
I mean, like, okay, all right, what?
There was a second time. There was the SNC Lavalin scandal here in Canada. I'm sure you don't know about that because you're an American. I don't blame you.
No.
But basically, the Liberals covered up a massive corruption scandal where it was revealed that the Liberal Party was siphoning tons of money to I think it was Libya. Libya. It was Gaddafi's country. That was Libya, not Lebanon. Yeah, Libya. Basically, you had a bunch of contractors, Quebec contractors, who were working with the Libyan government. And, Gaddafi's sons, I think, were staying in Montreal somewhere. And the Liberals just gave them a whole bunch of money to go party it up with Montreal hookers in a Montreal brothel. Okay? And it was a huge fucking scandal. Millions of dollars just siphoned away. And Trudeau shut down the Parliament, not Inquisition, what is it? Basically, Parliament's investigation looking into the whole thing. Not only did he shut them down, he went to his own Minister of Justice and basically fired her when she decided not to let the issue go. There was, obvious blanket corruption, rerouting around the rule of law here in Canada. And then there was a third example as well. There was an example with Trudeau where he had... Okay.
Okay. I will not allow you to cite specific examples within this Canadian kind of point of view, all right? Well, not just because you're about to become the 51st state, okay, after we fucking beat your ass, okay? But number two, there's a problem within your framing, okay? Because
go ahead.
you can just like how you can pick out authoritarian and fascistic actions within a liberal democracy, you can also pick out democratic actions within a fascistic government. But that doesn't mean a
Of course, yes,
fascistic
yeah.
government is going to be a democracy. For example, if I may, a king can always send out advisors in order to question the people on what they think in order to influence a decision, right? But just because he makes a decision that is informed by the people, sure, that one specific action might be democratic, but it doesn't mean the fascist government is a democracy now, does it? So your entire framing of this is incorrect.
That's a more complicated conversation, but so here.
I
Okay,
am
so
correct, you're wrong.
no, that's not necessarily true. So, at the very least, I can point out 3 examples of Trudeau trying to consolidate power. But you say that that's not fascist; it is fascistic. Okay,
Because
let's move on.
you are giving several points that could lean it more towards a more fascistic kind of thing. But at its very
Okay.
core, Canada is still a liberal democracy at its core that has not strayed away from that point. Because no matter what kind of fascistic actions that you take, it tends to snap back, and it is part of the conglomerate of liberal democracies. Yes, it is part of that
Okay, well,
spectrum. Yeah.
is that not the same thing with Trump and America? Then it's still a liberal democracy, and Trump can take certain actions, but it'll snap back.
Well, no, because again, it still fits my definition, right? Because once you take enough fascistic actions, eventually you are going to conform a liberal democracy to something that's not a liberal democracy anymore, right?
Okay, true. How many do
What
we
is Trump
need then?
doing? What is Trump doing? Huh? What is Trump doing?
Hold on. How many do we need? Because I can keep going
Okay.
down the list with Trudeau. How many do we
Okay.
need?
I promise it's not a cop out answer, okay? But it's
Okay.
vibe based.
Okay. Listen. Okay.
It's
If
not a
you,
cop out answer. You
so
know it's not a
so
cop out answer.
hold on.
You know
So
it's not a
so
cop out
if
answer.
just wait. So if we do all these measurements and we look at all the examples of consolidating power, all the examples of hating on an out group and scapegoating them, all the examples of limiting freedom of expression, all the examples of isolationism between Trump and Trudeau, if we run down all these tallies, and at the end of the day, the tallies just don't matter, and it's just vibes based, then the
No.
word
Oh
fascist
my,
doesn't have
no.
much of a meaning.
No, the vibes are based on the tallies. Does that make sense?
Oh, okay.
Like, for example, if we were to compare Trudeau's actions to Trump's actions, which actions are more extreme? Which actions are more fascistic? This
Depends
is an
which actions we're
easy
talking
no,
about.
okay.
It depends.
The fact that you paused before your answer proves to me that you are I feel like you're not being honest here, okay?
No,
Because
I
it's
am. I am.
clearly
I
Trump's
thought.
actions. Trump's actions are more fascistic than Trudeau's actions. By far.
No, I don't.
By far,
It,
okay?
it, it depends what we're
Yeah.
talking about. It depends what we're talking about. So here, let's talk about free speech. All right, let's talk about free speech.
Okay.
Seriously. So
Uh-huh.
you can there are many more things you can say in the United States that you can't say in Canada. The government will
All
come
right.
after you here if you say them.
Okie doke.
We have like they're called human rights tribunals, where basically if you offend someone too fucking hard, they'll charge you, and it's outside of the normal legal system, and it's fucking ridiculous here in Canada. There's a guy
Dev.
who like no, hear me out. There's a guy who got fined like $10,000 or something. I forget the number, but it was a stupidly high number for fucking misgendering someone in British Columbia. It's fucking retarded. All right,
Dev.
that shit doesn't happen
Dev.
in the United States.
Dev. Dev.
This is real. This
Dev.
is real,
Dev.
Foodshops. Yes,
Dev.
yes,
Trump
yes.
is suing Ann Seltzer for conducting a poll in Iowa that shows that Trump was losing in Iowa. All right. He is literally
Yep,
part
that's
of the
ridiculous.
government that is
That's
trying to
ridiculous.
suppress free speech, a freedom of expression. All right. You
I
can't
agree.
tell
I
me
agree.
that is less extreme than whatever you just described. That is a lot more extreme. And you know that
So
was a fact.
well, I'll tell you how it's not. Okay, I'll tell you exactly how it's
Oh.
not. So Trump. So
What?
do you hear me?
Okay, go.
Yeah, hear
Go.
me out.
Go.
Hear me out.
Yeah, go
So
ahead.
so
Yeah.
Trump is trying to do it, and he might succeed. And if he succeeds, that'll actually be very bad. In Canada, they have already succeeded. They've already succeeded in doing this. All right, they've already fined people for their fucking speech. They've already won that battle here in Canada. Trump still might lose it in the States. That's the difference.
Dad,
That's a big
please.
food shops. Do you see the difference? Do you understand the difference there?
No, I do not. Because no, actually I see a difference and Trump's is still more extreme. Because what can be more extreme than saying that like the fucking government like the president is not beholden to like these checks of government and to the law when he's doing presidential actions, in addition to him suing Ann Seltzer. I just don't get how this is like less extreme than fining Sony for $10,000 for memes and giggles. Like I just don't see it. I'm sorry, I just don't.
Okay,
Okay,
okay.
I just do not. Yeah, go.
So, what is Ann Seltzer? What is she being sued with? Like what's the actual charge?
Okay, hold on. Let me Google it.
And what
It
kind
does.
of fines does she face? And if she faces
I'm
fines,
pretty sure. I'm pretty sure it's defamation.
what's the
I'm pretty sure it's
likelihood?
defamation. Hold on.
Okay, what's the likelihood that she's going to win the case? Because in Canada,
I'm not a
in Canada,
lawyer. I can't give you the likelihood, like who's gonna win. What the fuck?
but this is what I mean. In Canada,
But you
the
can't
free
dismiss. But you
side has
can't
already
dismiss
lost.
what I no. But you
I'm
can't dismiss my
not
argument
dismissing it.
based off of that.
I've said
Hold
it
on.
several. I've said it's bad. I've agreed with you. This is bad. I agree with you.
I'm
I've
fairly
agreed with you this whole
confident
time.
that Ann Seltzer is being sued over like consumer fraud, if you want the answer to that. However,
Consumer
How is it
fraud.
consumer fraud? Oh,
What?
God.
because she to a level like misrepresented statistical results that it's just like so impossible according to Trump that it couldn't be. So she's defrauding her customers. But
That's fucking stupid.
it is. Regardless,